Is this how the Lakers are going to look next season? Hey, do you want to win a PS5 with Madden NFL 21 and NBA 2K21? We'll be announcing the winner as soon as they come out, so be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. Before we start the video, we want to mention that we're going to be sharing some very exclusive information, so make sure you guys watch the video all the way until the end because we may have just found where Derrick Rose will be finishing off the rest of his NBA career. With the Lakers finishing off their season with another ring on their hands, they have to be feeling good about their roster. With LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and a team of capable veteran shooters, it is clear that Rob Pelinka and the front office have done an exceptional job assembling this squad. But there's always room for improvement in the NBA, and even the reigning champs can't afford to be complacent. Just next season, there will be new challenges to face, new obstacles to climb, and rejuvenated teams ready to take their place in the zone, such as the Nets, Warriors, and so on. This is why the Lakers should consider a trade deal this offseason, and one recent trade stands out above the rest. With Derrick Rose becoming a free agent next season, there is a high likelihood that he will seek a new team that gives him a chance to win a ring before he retires. That is most certainly not going to happen with the Pistons. Giving Rose the chance to compete on a championship roster could complete the comeback for Rose after his horrific string of injuries. Rose would be the starting point guard for the Los Angeles Lakers, and while he is a former MVP, expectations will be curtailed as he won't need to be the focal point of the team anymore. He will be a contributor who will help the Lakers immensely. In return for the former MVP guard, Detroit could welcome Quinn Cook and JaVale McGee, two guys on cheap contracts who wouldn't expect to hoard a bunch of minutes from young guys. They're the perfect veteran leaders for a rebuilding team. For the Lakers, the acquisition of Rose gives them another ball handler that could take some playmaking duties off of the aging LeBron James. He's also a solid scorer who averaged 18 points per game this season, and his career redemption arc makes a great feel-good story for the fans. No matter which way you look at it, Rose is better off on a team that can win, and where better than Laker Nation? They've got the motive, the lore, and the assets to make it happen. The Los Angeles Lakers are going to be an intriguing team to keep an eye on this offseason. Even though they overcame the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals, LeBron James and Anthony Davis could use more help around them. Could a trade for Detroit Pistons point guard Derrick Rose be in the cards? Bleacher Report certainly thinks that Rose would be a perfect offseason trade target for the Lakers, but having a reliable playmaker on the floor when LeBron sits would bring more balance to a bench that needs it. Rose would absolutely bring some much-needed firepower to the Lakers bench, if not the starting lineup. The Lakers could either start Rose over Rondo or Rondo over Rose. It's all up to the coach, but from my perspective, I feel that Rose would be much better on the bench. Not because Rondo is a better player, but due to the fact that the Lakers bench is where most of their weakness is, so Rose would be a huge help in that area. He wouldn't add the perimeter shooting that the team needs to find this offseason, but his playmaking and ability to get to the rim and create his own shots would take pressure off of James and Davis. He shot 49% from the floor and knocked down 30.6% of his three-point attempts. At 31 years old, Rose has turned his career around over the last couple of years. After brutal injury troubles derailed his career, he is back on track and an explosive scorer once again. Quite a few contenders could consider making a push to trade for Rose. One other team that has been rumored to have an interest in Rose is the Los Angeles Clippers. In my opinion, I would rather see Rose on the Lakers due to the higher chances of him winning a championship. I mean, I'm pretty sure every fan of the NBA wants to see Derrick Rose win a championship before he retires, so the Lakers are a perfect fit for Rose, especially with the chances of the Lakers going back-to-back next season. Teams like the Nets and the Warriors will be in their way this time, but I'm sure the Lakers can overcome it, especially with the new addition of Rose. If the Lakers were to acquire Rose, their bench would take an immediate step forward. Rose also has a past with James when they played together with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That was back when Rose was still dealing with seemingly constant injuries. From the perspective of the Pistons, Derrick Rose is a hot commodity that teams will likely pay a hefty price tag to acquire. There is arguably no more well-regarded asset likely available before the 2020-21 season begins than Lakers forward Kyle Kuzma, who has scuffled to find his role in Lakers basketball, performing his worst season yet. The organization held out on including him in last summer's deal to acquire Anthony Davis, but that may have been a prescient move if it means getting to add Rose to the fold for next season. As is normally the case in such deals, the two franchises would likely have to finagle player salaries and draft pick compensation to make everything go off without a hitch. But assuming that they could both make the finances work and come to an agreement centered around sending Rose to LA and Kuzma to Detroit, now the thing with this trade proposal is if the Pistons would accept it. Would the Lakers need to add another one of their role players such as KCP, Quinn Cook, or Danny Green? Or maybe even a draft pick? If anything, the Lakers won't give up too much money. Outside of the two superstars, the Lakers have gotten some promising performances from role players, but question marks remain. Kyle Kuzma has struggled this season, sporting a career-low 53.6 true shooting percentage and a career-low 13.2 points per game. Kuzma hasn't improved on the defensive side of the ball or in terms of playmaking, and he has seen his three-point shooting dip from 36% to 34%. Injuries have had an impact, but Kuzma's struggles to fit alongside LeBron and Davis have caused the Lakers to start listening to trade offers for another solid player. I think we can all say Laker fans are tired of Kuzma not performing like he used to and are looking to trade him for another player, especially after how he performed in the finals. Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee have provided stability at the center position, providing rebounding and interior defense. Howard's resurgence as a key bench cog has been especially notable. Danny Green and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope play their roles as 3-and-D players. However, outside of James and Davis, the Lakers still lack any kind of shot creation or playmaking in the pick and roll. Rajon Rondo still has his moments, but is hit or miss, while fan favorite Alex Caruso is a limited player despite some of the good things he brings to the table. James may still be playing at an absurdly high level, and Davis still looks like a top 5 player, but one is 35 years old and the other has injury concerns. In order to for sure win another championship overcoming the Nets and Warriors, the Lakers need to make a trade for another player with the capability to take some of the load off of James and Davis, as we mentioned earlier. Derrick Rose is that player. Rose is currently enjoying a fantastic season for the Detroit Pistons. In only 25.8 minutes per game and mostly a bench role, Rose is averaging 18.3 points, 5.9 assists, and 2.4 rebounds. Rose is shooting a career-high 50.3% from the field and boasting a career-high 56.9 true shooting percentage. The Pistons decided to start Rose the last 2 games before the season was suspended, and he ended up averaging 24.5 points, 7.5 assists, and 2 rebounds while shooting 76.7% from the field. However, the Pistons as a team have been underwhelming to say the least. Don't get me wrong, they can do well, especially with Blake Griffin having one of the best seasons of his career recently, but due to injury, next season will be a struggle. Essentially, it sounds like the Pistons will be sellers before next season begins due to spiraling out of control, even despite a couple nice wins before the season was suspended. This means the Pistons will certainly be listening to trade offers for players who can help winning teams elsewhere, such as Rose. Rose is having his best season since 2012 and would help the Lakers immediately upon arrival. Rose has played with James before in Cleveland back in 2018, as we mentioned earlier, but Rose was very clearly not the player he is right now. Any worries about whether Rose would fit with James should be thrown out the window, as Rose would allow James to take a backseat when needing to take a rest, as well as Davis. With the Lakers already listening for trade offers for Kuzma after winning the NBA Finals, maybe a deal centered around the Flint product and a first-round pick would get the Pistons to bite on trading the former MVP. Packaging a young player and a pick would certainly catch Detroit's attention. But the question is if the Lakers would be willing to include an asset in a Kuzma trade when they clearly value him. With the urgency on winning next season for the Lakers and the clear upgrade Rose would be over Rondo and others in the backcourt, Los Angeles might just be willing to part ways with these future assets to go back-to-back next season. The Lakers' search for a playmaking guard is probably the league's worst-kept secret. With Rondo's growing age and Avery Bradley a shell of his former self, newly promoted Rob Pelinka knows what he's looking for this trade season. Rose, even at this stage, checks every box for them. He is a veteran who knows how to play the game, can create shots for others with his driving and scoring ability, and more importantly gives them another option besides Rondo, Caruso, and Bradley. Maybe an offer of KCP, DeMarcus Cousins, and Quinn Cook seems fair. If anything, the Lakers can for sure make this work with how much value their team can bring to the table. Laker fans, let us know who you'll be willing to give up this offseason for Derrick Rose in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one.